All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tech Talk. The Data Hub Tech Talk series is a series that aims to connect University of Idaho researchers with tools and topics and issues that can help them produce scholarly work in this information and digital age. So to that end, we have social sciences librarian Jylisa Kenyon here, and she is going to talk about qualitative coding using a couple different softwares. So Jylisa, it's all you.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead. I hope everyone can hear me. I had muted my speaker when Norm was talking, but it was still coming through my computer. So who knows? Who knows what's happening? So what we're going to talk about today are two tools, two free and open source tools that can help you code qualitative data. Both of these tools, Taguette and Oral History as Data, work slightly differently and serve different purposes. But hopefully, after this presentation, you'll have a better idea of how both of these work and maybe how you could use them in your own work or in your own research. I'm going to go ahead and stop my video while I'm doing the presentation, since my webcam's at the bottom of my laptop and you don't need to see my fingers doing all of the typing. Okay, so the first tool we're going to talk about is Taguette. As I mentioned, Taguette is a free and open source tool that helps you code qualitative data. Their website is just taguette.org, and you can also Google it to get here. Taguette offers two different ways or two different modes of access. So the first is you can run Taguette locally. You can install it on your Windows machine, on your Mac. You can install it using Linux, and then just run it locally on your own computer. The other way is that they also offer a web version, either through a hosted server where you can use it with Taguette's own server if you wanted to do that, or you could have it installed on a self-hosted server. So if you have access to that, you can use it as well. The benefit of the server option is that it allows for both asynchronous as well as real-time collaboration. And so if you're thinking of doing a qualitative research project and you have collaborators or research partners and you're wanting to do coding at the same time or coding asynchronously of these documents, you're going to need, if you're using Taguette, to use one of the server options. One thing you do want to keep in mind, and Taguette talks about this within their guides, is if you're using their server, just keep in mind that it's as private as it can be, but if you are at all concerned with the information that's being shared in the documents you're uploading, you might want to consider using a local version of Taguette or using a self-hosted server version rather than kind of relying on their server, if that's something that's necessary for you or maybe something that was in your IRB approval. Compared to other tools like Atlas TI or NVivo, Taguette is limited in terms of the types of documents you can actually code. So Taguette is focused really on that textual data. You can upload a variety of file types, including docx, .odt, .text, PDF, HTML, EPUB, and other ebook formats, but it's really focused on text. If you're looking at tools like Atlas TI or NVivo, oftentimes you can code videos or images or even like spreadsheet files or maps and different things like that. But this is really focused on text. One of the drawbacks of Taguette as a tool compared to some of those other paid for or proprietary tools is it really doesn't offer any visualization options to see like frequency of codes or how codes relate to each other. But in my mind, that is also one of the benefits because if that's not something that's important for you and to you for your research, Taguette really lets you focus on the text itself and the tags or the codes that you're applying without trying to think about what visualization will work best. So let's go ahead and jump into Taguette. I've already installed it. So what I'll do is I'll just search for it down here. And it runs kind of in the command line in the background. Once this opens, it's going to open it kind of just locally within whatever browser I have open or my default browser. You can import a project file as well as create a new project, but I have one right here that I've already created. As you're working through Taguette, they do provide a guide that gives you kind of the basic information for how to use this tool. And we'll step through a couple of these things here, but this guide's always available if you need it. So the first thing is, excuse me, I've already uploaded a few interview transcript files. So when I take a look at one of these, you'll see that this is my colleague Marco, who works at the library, our open education librarian. And one of the individuals we interviewed, Mandy Harris. So in my case, these interviews are not anonymized. The folks we talked to were part of an advisory board for a grant project that the library and the Alfred W. Bowers Laboratory of Anthropology are collaborating on. And so our advisors agreed to be interviewed and talk through some of the questions we had about this grant, leveraging their own expertise. So they're not anonymized. If you were doing your own qualitative research, it's likely that your participants or respondents would be anonymized. So just keep that in mind based on what we're seeing here. And the way in which these transcripts look, again, are going to be slightly different. We used a specific paid tool to transcribe our interview recordings. And so the timestamp appears after the name. And some other interview files or interview tools or transcription tools, the timestamp might appear in a different location. So this is just kind of an initial look at what a transcript file might look like. As we're scrolling through, this file's already here. We might want to start thinking through how we could code it. Within Taguette, codes are called tags, and they're organized under highlights. So within this document, I already have a few highlights created, and I've added some initial codes. So what this is going to show is these are all of the codes or tags that I've created within this project file, and then the count or appearance of each of these within this individual transcript. So as I scroll down, we can see at this 3-minute and 20-second mark, if I click on this first highlighted portion, we can see I've tagged it as erasure. I could easily change this if I needed to, or create a new tag and have multiple highlights appearing or multiple tags applied to the same highlight. I could also delete a highlight if I wanted to. As we're scrolling through, we can add additional tags, as I mentioned. So if we're going, maybe I want to look at something a little bit further down. And we can, maybe this is talking about the reputation of the folks that are kind of building these collections. So maybe I would highlight this and add in a new highlight. Maybe something that they're talking about within the context of this question is like land grant universities. So I can add that tag in, save and close, and it will add that highlight. So this is a very simple way to add highlights and tags compared to something like NVivo or Atlas TI. It's very basic. You highlight your section, you add the tag or the code, and then you kind of save and close out. Some of those paid for tools offer a lot of different options for doing this tagging. This is very straightforward. But one of the things Taguette does offer in a bit easier way is you can create nested tags very simply. Even though we already have some of these tags or codes created on the left-hand side, we can easily nest them without having to delete and re-highlight. So let's say I want to use criticalizing. Maybe that's going to be my top level tag, and I want to put erasure beneath that tag. To create hierarchical tags within Taguette, you can use different symbols or different kind of keystrokes. One of the easiest ones is you would just put a period. So we could say criticalizing period erasure, and then click save and close. If we clicked merge, it would try to merge two tags together, which is not what we're doing. We're trying to create a nest. So if we click save and close, we can see we have one instance of criticalizing erasure. But if we click on that higher level tag, criticalizing, it would show us any tags that maybe had that higher level tagging or any pieces of text that had that higher level tag, as well as that sub tag within it. It's not as easy to see, right, when we're only looking at a single document. But if we were to click see all highlights, that could be kind of a way to see that a little bit better. If we decided that we didn't want it nested there, we could simply edit the tag, delete that first portion, and then click save and close, and it will separate it out for us. So you could create as many kind of hierarchical levels as you would want with a tag using something like a period. If you go into the Taguette guide and under create tags, it's going to tell you a little bit more about hierarchical tagging. You can use any punctuation mark that you want to use. We just use the period for this example. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a new document. It's very simple. We already have 3 in here. If I just click add a document, I can choose my file. And again, it is limited by text file types. So let's just go ahead. I'm going to navigate to a different subfolder within my incredibly deep structure here. I have noticed sometimes, depending on the quality of kind of the text document, I've tried uploading PDFs and it hasn't worked as well as uploading something like a Word document or a text file. So just keep that in mind. But if it doesn't look correct once you upload it, it's very easy to delete it and then upload a different file type. You could add a description if you wanted to. You could add a file name. If you don't put in a document name, it will default to whatever the name of the file is you're uploading. So once that's uploaded, we can see the transcript here and we can start going through adding those tags again. In terms of export options, again, this is a free and open source tool, so it is limited compared to some of those proprietary or paid tools, but there are some options here. If we wanted to grab Mandy Harris's interview, if we click export this view, we can actually download the transcript or export it as a PDF. It seems to take a little while on my laptop, but it will show you, it'll highlight the areas of the text that you've highlighted here and then tell you what that tag is. That can be something useful if you maybe want an offline copy of what this looks like, and it can help you see maybe your tags in context a little bit more. So if we scroll down, we can see erasure and relationships. If this had been a nested tag, we would see that hierarchical kind of relationship there as well. When we're looking kind of at the entire project, there are some other export options as well. We could export the complete project as a SQLite 3 file, and then potentially upload it into another qualitative data analysis tool if that's what we wanted. We can export the code book in a variety of file types, and again, that could be then uploaded into another data analysis tool or just saved offline. We can also import a code book, and so if you're moving from a different tool in Vivo, Atlas TI, Qualcoder, and you have a code book that's already available, you could upload that here, and then all of those codes would appear as highlights that you could then apply to the transcripts or the textual documents you're coding over here. So that's a benefit of using this type of tool. So when we were creating, or I was showing you how to add those tags, one thing that you could also do when you click edit or at the time you're creating a tag is you could put in a description explaining when that tag should be applied and what it means. That's helpful, of course, when you're doing qualitative research as you're going back or spending a lot of time doing this coding. It'll help you remember what these tags mean, but then also if you make your code book openly accessible, it will also help others understand what you meant when you tagged something with a specific word or phrase, and potentially allow them to use your code book in their own research. If we wanted to merge tags together, what we would do is maybe let's go ahead and just for the sake of example, let's just do modern applications, and maybe we'll merge that with criticalizing. We'll merge those tags together, and they'll appear over here on the left-hand side. Okay, so that's all that I had for Taguette. Does anyone have any questions about this tool before we move on to oral history as a data? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close these. And when you close out, just make sure you kind of close that back-end command line that's working here. Okay, so oral history as data is a really unique tool that was created here at the University of Idaho Library by my colleague Devin Becker and the Center for Digital Inquiry and Learning. So this tool has been growing and expanding over time. And it's a really unique way to not only code and tag qualitative data, but it also helps you visualize it and potentially collaborate in ways you hadn't expected if you're working with a research team, and even just a different way to share the output of your qualitative research. So I'll go ahead and put this link in the chat for kind of the landing page for oral history as data. So oral history as data is also completely free and open source, and it's focused on textual data. Uh, Oral history as data has a little bit more of a learning curve than something like Taguette because it requires you to transform your textual data into a Google Sheet that's then downloaded as a CSV and uploaded into GitHub. The reason why there are that many steps is because you're actually using GitHub to host your qualitative data files as CSVs and be kind of able to visualize connections between tags across different transcripts. So let's just take a look at this demo site that Devin has created. This grew out of, I believe, his sabbatical research, and this is kind of the landing pages of the site. So the nice thing about this being built on GitHub and the fact that it's completely open source is that if you choose to use oral history as data, you can present your qualitative data and information in a very similar way using this exact template, and I'll show you how we'll copy that. There's two different ways to browse oral history as data, and we'll talk about what these each look like as we're working through a transcript. But we could browse by a transcript and maybe jump to a specific person. We can see that this is an interview with Bruce Beasley from June 20th, 2024. The YouTube recording of this video is available here. Again, if you were anonymizing your transcripts, you likely would not be putting this text or this information here. But if it's something that you are sharing out, this is a very useful way to include it. What I love, though, is this visualization right here. This includes the topics or the tags that have been highlighted across this entire interview with these different subject areas. And as we're scrolling through, we could limit or filter the transcript based on a specific topic and just see those areas where someone talked about maybe constructing and publishing manuscripts, and then jump to that portion of the video if we wanted to do that. If we go to subjects, this is where you can see this color-coded subject visualization. And you can quickly see just by scrolling through where maybe something like prompt, change, correspondence, files, career, etc., kind of appears. Those different tags or subjects appear across these different interviews. And hovering over these, you can get kind of their context in the actual text of what was said in that specific interview. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into how you do this. So from this landing page in GitHub for oral history as data, Devin has created some really useful documentation about how to use this. There's a specific lesson plan, and this lesson plan was created more for instructors who are teaching this to students in a course, how to use oral history as data. But it's still very useful for learning how to use it just as a single user or as a researcher. The first thing that Devin recommends is going to this For Instructors tab, learning a bit more about the project and setting up your repository. So again, this does require you to have a GitHub account. So if you don't, you can follow these steps. And if you do, you can skip that step and scroll down. What you want to do is make a copy of that template that will allow you to kind of create that site. So you would go to this oral history as data GitHub repository, and then click use this template, and it will add it to your own GitHub page. So we're not going to focus too much on what you're doing within GitHub to make the site run. The instructions are available right here, how to kind of edit the configuration file so that it renders correctly, and then how to do create a controlled vocabulary. We'll talk a little bit about publishing your site on GitHub pages so you can see it, but we're going to jump over here to the information that has more to do with coding your actual transcript documents. So as I mentioned, this is very much focused on text, but you have to change your text files into CSVs to be able to work with the oral history as data structure as it's set up. So the first thing they want you to do is make a copy of this blank transcript starter template, which is just in Google Docs. And so we'll make a copy, and it has this template that we can work with here. It has the timestamp, speaker, words, and tags. Now, depending again on what your transcripts look like or your qualitative data, you might not use timestamps. So they might be in a different location. They might be after the speaker, like in my example. You can always kind of move your text around and put them in the correct columns based on this template. So don't worry about that too much right now. Once we've done that, you're going to have to clean your transcript. So when we have transcript files, whether we've typed them ourselves or we've had a company auto transcribe or human transcription for videos or audio, there's often special characters and weird formatting that's added to the actual text of these transcripts. In my transcripts, as I was going through, I noticed that there are a lot of M dashes. And so when we try to then take something that has a special character and change it or convert it into a CSV, it doesn't render correctly. You get those weird little like percentage icons or weird ampersands where they shouldn't be. So when you're going to use, the first step to start coding your data is to clean your transcript. So what we'll do, Devin has created this nice little box that just does it for you automatically, is we'll go ahead and open a transcript here, and I'll show you what this looks like. Okay, so we're going to grab this transcript. And it looks a bit weird because I have moved it from a Word doc, which is how we got it from the company that we used to transcribe our interviews, into a text file and then removed any spaces that had appeared. So we'll just copy this, paste it into this box and clean. So this has removed any of those special characters that would create a problem when you were trying to actually eventually download this into a CSV. So we'll go ahead and copy this and we'll place it into this blank transcript under the speaker heading. You could place it wherever you want, but that's just where I'm going to put it there. This next step is going to tell you how to transform your transcript into a Google Sheet by separating out the speaker from the timestamp from the actual words that are used. The instructions that are included here are based on how this transcript specifically looks. Their example has a colon between the speaker and then the actual words. In my transcript, you can see that it's because the timestamp appears, the timestamp is separating the speaker from the tag, from the actual words. So what we'll want to do is do that kind of text into columns kind of separation here, something similar like you would do in Word. So what we'll do is we will highlight column B. We'll go under data. We'll click split text into columns. Under here at the bottom, it's detecting automatically, trying to guess what we want. But as you can see, it's really just kind of chunking it out into a weird way. So what we'll do, let me zoom out, or let me hide this little meeting control panel. I can't see what I'm selecting. What we'll do, zoom back in, is we will go custom. And then for our separator, we'll actually do a parenthesis, right, to separate out the speaker from the first part of our timestamp. We'll highlight C, which is where that new chunk of data is, split text to columns again. And in our case, because of how my transcripts look, we'll do a parenthesis and a colon. Now we have the speaker separated from the words from the timestamp. So what I can do is I can go ahead and just move this over to column A, go ahead and put timestamp. I can move column D back over where it needs to be, do words, and then do tags. Okay, so what we're going to do is start adding our tags. So I'm going to go ahead, just so that we can see this a little bit better, is I'm going to wrap the text just so that it's not kind of completely rolling into that other heading or the other column over there. So similar to how we were working in Taguette, tags is what we use to talk about the codes or the ways that we're kind of categorizing the chunks of text we're looking at here. So if we want to add a tag, we would first just type whatever that is, and we could add multiple by putting a semicolon without a space and then add other tags right within there. So one thing to keep in mind, though, when we are using oral history as data is what level of coding you're interested in. So right now, this has defaulted to the way that the company we received our transcripts from chunked out that interview, right? It's kind of paragraphs or maybe as a speaker changes. Within Taguette or some of those other tools, it's really easy to have a smaller level of coding, right? You can highlight a single word or just a single sentence. Oral history as data really isn't meant to code at a single word level, because you would have potentially, hundreds of thousands of rows for all of that. So if you're more interested in something that's more granular, what you might need to do before you get to this stage is split your text into columns, breaking it up maybe where each period appears. You could have maybe different sentence structures, and then you would just need to kind of clean that data and transpose it from a row and move it over into a column. We're just going to keep it as it is right here, knowing that there is a limitation maybe in terms of analysis if we are applying 4 or 5 codes to a big chunk of text, where maybe only 1 or 2 sentences reflect each of those codes. So just keep that in mind. You will need to do some cleaning if you want to change that level of coding as you're going through. Once we've added some tags, our next step would be to download this as a CSV file. So I already kind of have, we can go ahead and download this. And I'm just going to save it in downloads for now. So since I've already created a repository, we can jump back in here and I can show you where we'll go to actually then push this up, and we can start visualizing what our tags and things like that look like. This is all stepped through in the instructions that Devin has created within kind of the code and download section, as well as the publish and connect section as well. Okay. The first step is going to be to upload the transcript. And so what I'm going to do, just to make this easy, is since I didn't name the transcript or didn't name the Google Sheet within Google Drive, I'm just going to go ahead and rename it here, because the name that we give it right here is going to need to be consistent across the different spots in GitHub where we're going to reference it to make sure it renders correctly. So I'm going to go under this data folder, and there's a transcript subfolder. So the nice thing about using a template that Devin and the folks in CDIL have created is you don't have to worry about most of these other files. These config files and things like that allow the site to work and render successfully. So you really don't have to worry about that. You really just have to focus on adding your data in. And then the structure of the site will be exactly the same and function in a similar way. If you wanted to change things like the look or the layout, that's when you dive into some of these other files. And if you wanted to do that, that's when you could reach out to Devin and the folks at CDIL if you needed assistance with that. But we'll jump into transcripts. I already have 5 uploaded here. I'll add a file as an upload. I'll choose it, very similar to just uploading anything to any other Google Drive or something like that. We'll upload it. And then what we'll do is we'll commit a change. So when you're in something like GitHub, anytime you make a change or upload a file, you commit it, and it tracks all of those changes. So if you needed to, you could go back and revert something if you made a mistake. So once we've done that, our next step is we jump into the transcripts file. So this is going to tell us a little bit more about each transcript. We'll create a new subfile for that interview with Dr. Supernaut. But what we can do to make it easy is I can click on any of these that are already created, go to the raw version of this markdown file, copy everything, and then go back to that transcripts folder, create a new file, and then just go ahead and paste this in. The object ID is going to be the name of that CSV, the file name. So we'll do supernat _ Keisha, and then we'll change the rest of this information to reflect the interview with Dr. Supernaut. So we would change the date. Interviewer is going to stay the same, the location. Within the instructions that Devin has created, there's different sources you could reference depending on whether you want the video or the audio of your interview to appear within that same page. So if it was going to be YouTube, you would type YouTube, and then you would take kind of that last chunk of the YouTube video's URL and paste it here as the audio video ID to create that connection. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this text. And so maybe I would then type a new biography since this is focused on Angela Neller, I would go ahead and put the biography for Dr. Supernaut there, and then I could add a link if I want to. So this here, the way to do this link with the brackets and then the parentheses is Markdown. Markdown's a kind of really easy and accessible kind of web programming language. There's lots of guides out there online for how to use Markdown, and there's folks in the library who can provide some assistance, folks in the Data Hub who can provide some assistance on how to use Markdown specifically when you're working in GitHub. So if you have questions about that, please reach out to them. But we'll just delete this now so that it stays correct. Up here, since we're creating this new file, we'll need to name it. So name it the same way you named that transcript file, but add MD Markdown to make sure it renders correctly. I'm going through this pretty quickly because I've done this a couple of times to make sure I could do it correctly for this presentation. But each of these little sub-steps are listed within the instructions that Devin has created. So go ahead and commit those changes. And then we can see that if we click on this, it looks correct, right? It looks like that other file we had for Angela Miller. So I already have some of these in here. And the next step would be to make sure that I had my code book correct. Under this data folder here, there is a filters CSV. I could create this directly within GitHub, or I could create a Google sheet, download as a CSV, an Excel spreadsheet saved as a CSV. This is going to have that tags, the name, and then the description, similar to what we had in Taguette. This will allow you to create that nice visualization with the different colors, and then maybe navigate based on the tags that have been applied. So our next step, if we want to actually create that site, is to publish this repository within GitHub to GitHub Pages. So to do that, you would go under Settings, go under Pages, and you'd want to build it, deploy it from a branch, from the main branch and the root folder, and click Save. It takes a while. It takes a few seconds, maybe a couple of minutes, but then it gives us this URL for our website. Now, depending on how you're planning to use this site, you might not want to make this URL accessible. So right now, I'm the only one who can see it under settings. Even though your repository has to be public, this repository, this clear AB transcript repository has to be public to be able to create a GitHub page. Like if I open this in an incognito tab where I'm not logged in, go like this, the root for that folder, that repository, maybe. Even if I open it there, see if we can get it to work. You can see all of my data, you could view my transcripts, and things like that. You couldn't actually get to the site where we're doing that analysis. So just keep that in mind. If you are needing to keep your data private, but you want to use this tool, make sure that your data are anonymized, so that if people do come in here or somehow find your repository, that they're not able to identify who your research participants are. But for Devin's example, interviewing poets and writers, my example, interviewing advisory board members who've agreed to have their information posted online, it's not a problem for our specific project. But what we'll do is we will go ahead and jump into this website. So this is what it looks like for me. I don't have nearly as many codes as Devin has applied to his transcripts, but each row here is a specific interview. So we could similarly browse by transcript and jump into any of these. So we could jump into our interview with Dr. Richard Myers. And since we formatted our timestamps correctly and the YouTube video appears, we could easily scroll down, click on any of these timestamps, and it will take the viewer directly to that portion of the video. I didn't share my screen with audio, but that would allow you to then kind of easily jump to a specific section within that recording, or just the audio if you didn't want to upload the video or have the video available. As with Devin's example, we can jump here and see examples of where specific tags have appeared. We have larger chunks of text just based on how that looked. So just keep that in mind. Again, your level of tagging analysis that you want to use. So one of the benefits of oral history as data, and one of the ways that I have used it with colleagues at the University of Idaho, is we had done a research study where we interviewed science faculty within College of Science, College of Agricultural and Life Sciences, and the College of Natural Resources about their data needs. So data support needs, how they use data, how maybe they collaborate with undergraduates and graduate students on research projects. There were 6 or 7 of us who were working on this project, and we knew it was going to be a lot of work to do qualitative coding. We didn't want to purchase licenses for proprietary software, but we did need to have some type of real-time or at the bare minimum, asynchronous collaboration for coding to make this work so that all of us could work together. So we used oral history as data to do that. We worked with Devin and he helped us kind of mock up a slightly different structure for how this looked, but we used that kind of basic template. The benefit of oral history as data is that all of us who had been assigned or who we had decided which transcripts we were going to code together, we could have 2 different sheets and jump in here and do coding at the same time and then compare our codes with each other for inter-rater reliability. And then once we were all done with the coding, we could push those transcripts up to our website and actually start doing some analysis and seeing how the different interviewees talked about the same concepts and whether they were referencing similar ideas. So the visualization of oral history as data and this kind of version of the GitHub page allowed us to not only do that real-time coding collaboration, it also allowed us to analyze our data in a slightly different way by using the visualizations that are built into oral history as data. Now, depending on your project and what you're trying to do with the qualitative data, you might also use oral history as data as a presentation tool, similar to what we'll do with these advisory board transcripts or what Devin did in his kind of example oral history as data site. Is you can also use it as a way to share the interviews that you've conducted. This is a great kind of way for the community or the folks you're interested in reaching with your research to engage with these interviews because it allows them to have the transcripts and then the audio or the video or the recording right there. It makes it much more accessible maybe than jumping into YouTube and having to just turn on the closed captions or download a separate transcript file. And because it has this coding information here, it also allows them to engage with the transcripts and the research in a slightly different way. Now, again, if you're needing to anonymize your data because you're not wanting the identities of your research participants or the folks you spoke with to be public, you would just need to do that at the CSV level or at the transcript level. You could potentially use oral history as data kind of as a second stage of analysis. So maybe your initial transcripts include maybe contextual information that maybe it would alert someone to who a specific participant is, but you still want to publicize your research and share those transcripts. You could then maybe redact some of that information here within the Google Sheet before you push it up to GitHub and onto this type of GitHub page so that the data are still available and people can engage with it without running into some of those anonymity or privacy concerns. So just keep that in mind if you're wanting to use oral history as data and you have promised anonymity and confidentiality and privacy for your research participants, make sure that your transcripts are redacted sufficiently to ensure that the protection of your research participants' identity kind of continues even once you make this information public. Okay, so that's all I have for you all today. I know that's a lot of information, and it's very much, my presentation is very much, here are these tools, now go forth and use them and learn about them. But please feel free, if you have questions about something like Taguette, please feel free to reach out to me. If you have questions about oral history as data, I would definitely recommend you reach out to Devin Becker or the folks at CDIL, as this is really the tool that they have built, and they can provide some great guidance for you in terms of using that.